Science. Ooh, la-di-da.
We're scientists. We can conceive of anything.
You must learn to distinguish between smut and science.
Put your trust in the scientific method. Put your faith in the scientific method. I have enough faith in the scientific method.
Ooh, la-di-da.
So my name's Fred Williams. I've got a Bachelor of Science in the electrical engineering. Right now I work for Micron. And those little sticks that you put into your computer, if they don't work, don't blame me, but that's what I work on. Okay, so something else that Bill and I said in the debate is evolution makes predictions and creation doesn't. We'll take a look at a lot of evolution predictions and creation predictions as I go through my talk. So just as an example, and we do, on our radio show, we do what we call list shows, like the list of not so old things. Now we've got a show that we call List of Predictions, of Creation Predictions. And you can go see those at any time on our website, and you can listen to the, once a year we'll have a list show, we'll cover that same topic. But some of the famous ones, like when I first saw Bob Enyart before we became friends, I saw a debate that he had with Eugenie Scott back in 1998. And he had asked her, what are your 3 best evidences for evolution? She only mentioned 1. She didn't mention 3. She mentioned 1, and it was junk DNA. And Bob said at that time, I predict that over time we will find that junk isn't junk DNA. So we all know that that's been proven true, right? That there's no junk DNA. I don't have to show a slide on that. You can go check on the internet, check secular sources. There's no junk. The junk DNA is pretty much gone. Excuse me. Another great prediction that a lot of creationists might be familiar with is when Dr. Russell Humphreys made his magnetic field predictions of different planets' magnetic fields, the magnetic field strengths. And then the Voyager and Messenger satellites later on proved those. So he published those predictions in a creation magazine, and then the data came in several years later, and it confirmed his predictions and totally contradicted the scientific community completely. The Hubble deep field images would look like nearby galaxies. That was one we predicted, and sure enough, when the Hubble deep field images came in, we saw galaxies with the spiral arms, and they shouldn't have those spiral arms anymore if they're really old, right? Because Newton's laws, the stars wind up be like a clock screw, you shouldn't have it. The evolutionists call that the winding up problem. So we got tons more on the show. I'll highlight a few as we go through here. So this one in March 2012, we had an article in our hands on this lake that they found in Antarctica. They discovered it, and it was 2 miles under the surface. So now because it's so far down, they think it's been sealed off, and there's been 15 million years have gone by. So what a great laboratory experiment for evolution, okay? Because 15 million years have gone by. They claim we evolved from a chimp-like creature 5 million years ago, so this is 3 times longer than when they claim that we evolved from a simian ancestor, okay? So they're expecting to find all kinds of evolution, all kinds of adaptation into that environment that fits the evolutionary paradigm. So we made a prediction that they're just going to find everyday life in that lake. So here we go. July 7, 2013, this gets published. They finally had a look at all this stuff, and here's what they found. I'll show you an excerpt from the article. Sometimes this thing's a little finicky. Okay. Many of the species we sequenced are what we would expect to find in a lake. Most of the organisms appear to be aquatic, freshwater, and many species that usually live in the ocean or lake sediments. All they found were modern-day life forms. That's an evolutionary prediction that did not come true, and a creation prediction that did come true. Here's another one. They claim that evolution, a lot of evolutionists and a lot of people believe, well, we should be getting better. We're evolving. I mean, whenever you hear the word evolve, it implies you're improving. Now, they'll say, yeah, it could be, it's just change too, but generally speaking, evolutionists think that we're getting better, yet evidence comes in all the time that we're not. And here's an example. They did a measurement where they compare reaction times, and they did this over 100 years ago, And then they did it again, and they discovered that our IQ would be 14 points less than our 19th century ancestors. So each generation, sorry, we're getting just a little bit, our IQ is going down just a little bit, our reaction time. So I gave a talk at a high school about 2 months ago, whenever. I can tell you exactly when I gave that talk because the next slide is exactly the day. So this is the day before I gave a talk, 28 April 14th. I'm like, well, I got to add this slide because look what this slide says. Modern humans have become weaklings compared with our ancient ancestors who could outrun and outlive today's top athletes. So more evidence that over time, through generations, that we're not evolving into, the mutations slowly, gradually accumulate. I mean, God's blessed us with a DNA system that has a remarkable quality control system. Mutations are very rare. But because we're in a fallen creation, we are slowly, each generation, just very slowly, getting less fit, or however you want to call it. Definitely goes against the evolutionary paradigm. Okay, so here's another illustration I wanted to show you. So our chromosomes, as I mentioned, over time, if you go back to Adam 6,000 years ago, I'm using baseball as an example that just imagine as we come to today, we build up a genetic load. We accumulate more mutations over time, slowly. Where did Cain get his wife, married his sister, right? A lot of people freak out at that. But the Bible said Adam and Eve had many children. Well, this is Adam and Eve's time, okay? There's no mutations they could have had. You could marry a sister and not have any genetic problems. So God did not outlaw incest until around this time frame here, Exodus with the law when it was given to Moses. Then he outlawed incest. Remember, Abraham married a half-sister. So when the genetic load got too large, that's when God said, okay, we got to stop having close relations. Okay, so why am I showing you this? There's more to it than that. What's interesting is the male Y chromosome doesn't change a lot. Each generation, it only takes very, very few changes, okay? Very few. Now, they can use the Y chromosome for genetic genealogies and whatnot, but it doesn't change very much. It's pretty robust. So this is a crude example. Again, there is some small change. I just want to give you the idea that it's conserved more than other chromosomes. So what's interesting is across the globe, when you look at the Y chromosome, it's pretty similar among everybody, okay? And we trace the Y chromosome back to, well, we could say Adam, but really back to Noah, right? There was one Y chromosome on the ark. Noah and his sons, because the Y chromosome only goes from dad to son. That's the only way it goes. Okay, so if you're an evolutionist, you would make a prediction, and they did. So they knew of this. They knew that the Y chromosome was, at least in their lingo, it hasn't changed much in the last, 100 million years. They think it changed a ton in the past. But anyways, we'll get to that. So we would expect it not to be that different in a chimp because they think we're related to a chimp. If this thing doesn't change that much, then it shouldn't have changed that much in a chimp that was related to our supposed common ancestor with the chimp. That's what's expected. That's what evolutionists predict. This is what actually happened. The chimp's Y chromosome is incredibly different. Here's from Science Daily. The results overturn the expectation, the prediction of evolution, that the chimp and human Y chromosomes would be highly similar. Instead, they differ remarkably in their structure and gene content. Here's what the guy who wrote, the scientist who reported on this in Nature magazine. He said that, and this guy is of the Whitehead Institute of Biomedical Research in Cambridge, he said that in the journal Nature, that the human and Y chromosomes are horrendously different than each other. Is that a scientific term? Between 30 to 47% different. Horrendously is not a scientific term. He said that because it contradicts his worldview of evolution. He continued to say the difference in the MSY gene content in chimpanzee and human is more comparable to the difference in autosomal gene content in chicken and human. Horrendous indeed. Oh, here's a quick, just for your, you know. Okay. So this is an article that came out fairly recently in ICR. I thought this was really cool. I don't know if you saw it. So this guy's got a PhD, Nathaniel Jensen, I think from Harvard, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure it's from Harvard. And he's now a creationist. He's got a really interesting study here. So he looked at the mitochondrial rates between, all humans. And if you look at the top chart up here, if evolution is true, this should be how many differences you'd expect in the mitochondrial DNA, given about and he's estimating over about 180,000 years. If in just a 10,000 year time frame, we'd expect a range between 7 and 16 DNA differences, and this is what we get. So which one matched the prediction? Which one fits which worldview? Same thing here with the fruit flies. This was what, if evolution is true, you'd expect that. If creation is true, you'd expect that. This is what the data says. Same thing with roundworms. If evolution is true, if creation is true, and here's the results. So pretty neat study. We covered that on a